February 1st, 1970, Day 1. I woke before the sun, not because of noise, but because of its absence. Long Tieng was never truly silent. Even at night, the valley breathed. Dogs barking, men murmuring in low voices, aircraft engines winding down, someone always coughing in the cold. That morning, the air felt held, like lungs refusing to exhale. Fog lay thick and heavy pressed against the hills, as if the mountains themselves were trying to hide. I had been fighting long enough to recognize that feeling. The war had arrived before the shooting. It hadn't come without warning. The signs had been there for weeks. In January, outposts went quiet. Trails were cut clean, not hurried. Scouts reported movement that didn't belong to villagers. Hmong refugees arrived with the same stories told by different mouths. The enemy wasn't advancing loud. He was preparing. The Americans had seen it too before February came. The CIA urged our general to leave Long Tieng while the routes were still open. They spoke calmly. Rationally, they told him the enemy was coming in numbers we could not match, that once the valley was fully surrounded, there would be no clean withdrawal. They said saving the people and the army mattered more than holding a place. They were not wrong. But General Vang Pao refused. He would not abandon Long Tieng, not the center of our world, not the place that held our people, our wounded, our future. He said if the enemy wanted it, they would have to take it from us. And if we had to fight to the last man, then so be it. The decision was his, and once it was made, it became ours as Hmong soldiers. We did not question it. We obeyed. With that refusal, the Americans had no choice but to stand with us. More CIA field officers were sent in. Royal Lao troops were brought forward. Thai units were committed. Long Tieng was no longer a base being warned. It was a position being defended. All of that had already happened. That was why the silence felt so heavy when I opened my eyes on February 1st. My scouts returned just after first light. They came in pairs, silent, eyes still scanning. Even after they reached our line, no one smiled. That told me everything before they spoke. They reported fresh tracks on the northern trail stating that those are not villagers' trails since they were too straight and too deliberate. Bamboo cut cleanly with steel, and they found a cooking fire that was cold but recent. No rice husks, no trash. Soldiers who knew how to disappear. Must be North Vietnamese or Pathet Lao trained by them. But it didn't matter. They weren't passing through us. I gathered my platoon beneath the trees, away from the open slope, 31 men, some veterans, some barely old enough to shave. The enemy is moving, but they won't attack us yet. They're just observing us, I told my troops. These men trusted me. That weight never leaves your chest. We spent the morning rechecking positions we thought were already finished, fighting holes deep in another handspan. Claymores re-angled. Trip flares tested and retested. I quietly corrected arcs of fire, and then moved a machine gun 10 meters left where the ground dipped just right. Just small decisions. These are the ones that decide who lives. By midday, the fog burned off and the valley revealed itself. Long Tieng spread below us, fragile and exposed. The airstrip cut through the green like a scar. Aircraft sat lined up. Everything here was too important. I sent 2 men back to observe the northern ridgeline again, not to engage, just to see to know where the enemy is. No shots were fired that day. In the afternoon, walked the perimeter alone. Men think us commanders walk to inspect them, but really, we walk to inspect ourselves, to see whether our courage still fits. The jungle felt closer than usual. Branches shifted where no wind moved them. Birds had gone quiet. Even insects seemed cautious. Animals always know before men do. As evening fell, I ordered the platoon to stand early, helmets on, weapons loaded. No cooking fires, no smoking. We ate cold rice and dried meat, and then someone cracked a joke too loudly, and I shut it down with a look. Not unkind, just firm. The night came fast, and from my position I heard it then a faint, distant, steady of engines, trucks far away, moving slowly so the sound wouldn't carry. An army settling in, not rushing forward. I pressed my helmet tighter and scratched my wife's name inside the liner with the tip of my knife. I don't know why I chose that moment. Maybe I needed to remind myself that this place was not the whole world. No flares, no gunfire, no mortars, only the feeling of being watched. I did not sleep. I rested my eyes in minutes at a time, counting breaths, listening as the jungle breathed back. By dawn, I knew one thing with certainty. The enemy had arrived at Long Tieng. Day 2. Morning came thin and pale, as if even the sun was unsure. None of us had slept much. Men climbed out of their holes stiff and quiet, eyes raw, movements careful. No one complained. Complaints waste air. We saved ours. Fog rolled back in before dawn, heavier than yesterday. It pressed low, swallowing distance, killing sound. The kind of fog that carries men instead of hiding them that worried me. Fog favors anyone who wants to move close. At first light, I sent scouts east and west, not north. The north already felt finished. What mattered was how wide the enemy was spreading, how many fingers he was laying on us. While they were gone, I walked the line. I crouched behind each position, checked sight lines myself, shifted one man's barrel, pushed another's knee lower, too high, too visible, small corrections, the kind that decides who dies. Mid-morning, 3 shots cracked from the east. Pathet Lao scouts stepped out just long enough to be seen, then slid back into the trees. They wanted noise, wanted to hear us rush, to waste ammunition and lose discipline. I gave them nothing, but when they fire again and bullets hit closer to us, I then ordered 2 short bursts, clean, quiet enough to say we are here without saying anything else. The men did well. No shouting, no panic. By noon the fog burned off, and heat took its place. Sweat pooled and flies gathered. The jungle woke up loud and busy, pretending nothing had changed. The scouts came back early, reporting that the west was quiet. Wrong kind of quiet, but the east had movement. I gathered the platoon, spoke low. They're counting us. One of the young ones asked if we should push them back. Not yet, I said. Let them think we're patient. The afternoon dragged, and my thoughts wandered where I didn't want them. Home. Mountains that didn't smell like rotten cordite. Late in the day, shots again from the east. It was closer and bolder. Then one of my men fired without orders, a sharp crack that hung too long in the air. I corrected him after, quiet and steady. Anger teaches nothing. By dusk, I understood. This wasn't watching anymore. The enemy had touched us, just enough to feel our skin. That night, I tightened the watch, 2 men per position, 1-hour rotations, and no more, because fatigue kills faster than bullets. In the dark, I sat in my hole and listened. A twig snapping east, metal clinking north, truck coughing far away. Then silence. The jungle felt occupied. Before resting, I ran my hand along my rifle, smooth and familiar. I whispered to it like an old friend, "Tools you trust deserve respect." Sleep didn't come, but beneath the fear, something settled in, and that was readiness. We weren't waiting anymore. The war was already at the tree line. Day 3. The first sound was stone on stone, not a shot, not a voice, but a mortar base plate. I did not move. I did not speak. I lay in the dirt and listened. My pulse started counting for me. A flash on the ridge, 1, 2, and 3. Impact, the ground jumped, then went still. No shrapnel and no screams. They were not killing yet. They were measuring. I crawled the line, shoulder to shoulder, breath shallow. "Don't fire. They want noise," I said. Some men nodded. Some did not blink. Then another flash, another wait, another thud. By mid-morning, my neck ached from holding it down. My jaw hurt from staying locked. Sweat soaked my shirt and never cooled. I told them the truth, because lies collapse faster than dirt. "This is a ruler," I said, "not an attack." No one asked questions. We dug. Hands bled. Nails split, and timber groaned as we forced it into place. I moved a squad, downslope 20 meters. The fog burned off, and the valley opened. The airstrip shone like a target painted by God. I imagined round walking across it. One after another, my chest tightened until breathing felt like stealing. No one fired, and that mattered. In the afternoon, the round stopped, and that was worse because silence pressed in heavy like a held breath that refused to end. Before dark, I walked the impact points. The earth was torn open. I knelt and touched one crater. Warm, too warm that my hand shook. Then I clenched it into the dirt until it stopped. That night, I shortened the watch again. No fires, no talking, movement only if death required it. Lying there, helmet biting into my neck, rifle pinned to my chest, I felt the line tightening. They knew our range, they knew our position, and soon they would decide the time. Somewhere on the ridge, men with maps and pencils decided who would still be breathing when morning came. Day 4. Nothing exploded today, and that should have felt like relief, but it didn't. The morning came wrapped in fog again, thicker than before, clinging to the valley like damp cloth. Sound carried strangely in it, cough that sounded too loud, and footstep that sounded too close. Men moved slower and more careful, like the air itself might betray them. I ordered no patrols beyond our immediate perimeter until midday. After yesterday's mortar, moving blindly in a fog felt like offering the enemy free measurements. Instead, we listened. War has many sounds, and today it was the sound of waiting. By mid-morning, the fog thinned enough to see the ridgelines, and they looked unchanged, but that was the lie. Today they felt occupied, even if no movement showed itself. I spent most of the day walking between positions, talking quietly to each man, not about tactics, but about small things like water, boots, and whether their rifle sights were still true. These conversations mattered to men. Around noon, I heard it again. Engines in the distance, slow and controlled. Trucks, moving under cover of terrain, probably at staggered intervals. Supply columns feeding the mouth that would soon bite us. I counted them by sound alone and timing the gaps, thinking to myself that was at least a company's worth of movement, maybe more. Sounded like they weren't rushing, and that told me everything. In the afternoon, I finally sent a 2-man observation team toward the north. They returned before dusk, reporting to me of more trails and that they were wider trails. Heavy boots like someone had dragged something metal, perhaps artillery parts or recoilless rifles. As the sun dropped behind the hills, Long Tieng looked almost peaceful. Smoke rose from cooking fires in the valley. Aircraft sat silent. Children's voices drifted faintly from below, and that contrast cut deeper than any mortar. After evening, I gathered the platoon and spoke plainly. No speeches, just facts. They are building something, I said, and they will come when they are ready, not when we want them to. No one argued. No one asked questions. Everyone already felt in their bones. That night, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. I imagined enemy officers bent over maps, redrawing lines they had measured yesterday, and being confident now. I reached up and touched the inside of my helmet where my wife's name was carved, and the metal felt cold. Still no gunfire and no mortars, just the sound of trucks in the distance, feeding a future that was coming for us whether we wanted it or not. I slept lightly, waking often, each time convinced I had missed something important. By dawn, I understood the truth of Day 4. Silence was no longer absence, it was preparation. Day 5. Daybreak came hard and bright, like the valley was trying to pretend nothing was wrong. The fog lifted early, burned away by the sun, exposing everything at once. Hills, airstrip, villages, and scars in the earth where mortars had measured us. With clear air came a different danger. Now we could see, and so could they. I took that as a sign that if the enemy wanted the high ground, we were not going to give it to them easily. By mid-morning, orders came down to reinforce the hills overlooking Long Tieng. Those slopes were everything. Whoever owned them would decide whether planes lived or died, whether Long Tieng breathed or choked. I split my platoon into working parties. Half dug and half stood security. Then we rotated, digging under threat. Every shovel scrape sounds like a gunshot in your imagination. The soil was cruel, limestone and packed clay. Every inch had to be earned, and our hands blistered. One man split his palm open and wrapped it with cloth torn from his shirt without a word. Pride and pain lived close together in soldiers. As we worked, I kept my eyes on the ridgelines. Nothing moved, and that worried me more than fire. An enemy who fires shows his hand, while the one who watches keeps his cards. Near noon, and CIA Air America aircraft roared overhead and landed on the strip below us. For a moment, the sight lifted spirits that life still came and went through Long Tieng. We were still connected to the world, and I wonder how long that would last. In the afternoon, I climbed to the highest reinforced position myself. From there, the entire valley spread out below, the runway, the headquarters area, to the cluster buildings. They were too open and too exposed. I imagined enemy mortars landing there, one by one, walking their fire closer until nothing could land. I adjusted machine gun placement personally about 10 meters left, a slightly lower elevation with clearer traverse. As evening approached, exhaustion settled in, and it was the kind that lives in muscles and joints. Still, morale held since work gives fear somewhere to hide. No enemy fire came, but just before dusk, one of my sentries hissed softly and pointed. Movement on the northern ridge. I didn't fire, and neither did they. That exchange, seeing without touching, felt intimate, like locking eyes across a river before a knife fight. I told the men to eat while they could. The sun bled out behind the hills, turning the valley orange, then gray. Night came with sound this time. The enemy was close enough now that I could hear cadence in their speech, even if I couldn't understand the words. I lay in my fighting hole, rifle across my chest, listening to the valley fill with breathing. Ours and theirs. Day 5 ended without a single shot fired, but the ground had changed. The hills were harder, our positions deeper, and the distance between us and the enemy had shrunk to the length of a breath. Tomorrow, I knew, they would start pushing. Day 6. The morning broke unevenly, sunlight spilling over the hills in strips, leaving pockets of shadow that made every shape look like a man holding a rifle. I was already awake when the first message came in, whispered down the line, passed hand to shoulder. Contact north. The enemy were testing every weak seam. Small enemy groups moved through the trees, staying low, disciplined. They were close enough now that I could hear the scrape of boots on stone when the wind shifted. This wasn't an attack meant to break us. It was meant to bend us. By mid-morning, one of the northern outposts began to fold. Not from panic, not from casualties, but from pressure. There was too many angles, too much movement, too little depth that holding would have meant dying in place for ground that no longer mattered. Their withdrawal left our flank exposed, so I made the call. Withdraw by bounds, I ordered. Cover each other, and no running. The men executed it cleanly, with controlled short movement. We moved drop, and cover then move again. Exactly how we had practiced when the world was quieter. Still, retreat leaves a taste in your mouth that never goes away. One boy stumbled coming down the slope, sliding on loose rocks that sent panic flashing across his face. He was young, only 16, maybe even younger. He started to cry as he ran. I grabbed him behind cover, shoved him down, locked eyes with him. Breathe, I told him. We reformed lower, tighter, and closer to the heart of Long Tieng. The hills above us now felt occupied, even when no enemies showed themselves. I knew they were watching our movement, learning our reactions. In the afternoon, the enemy fire tapered off. They had what they wanted: ground, information, and confidence. They didn't chase us, and that restraint scared me more than aggression. I walked the new line, checking men, touching shoulders, adjusting fields of fire. That evening, as the sun fell behind the hills, I looked back toward the abandoned outpost. Smoke curled faintly where we had smashed equipment we couldn't carry. Night fell heavy, and I doubled the watch again. Short rotations with 2 men awake at every position. No talking unless necessary. That night I could hear movement, not close enough to engage, not far enough to ignore. Metal clinked softly. Enemies were settling into the ground we had just left. I lay awake, counting breaths, feeling the earth through my back. Day 6 taught me something important. The siege was no longer theoretical. It had reached out and taken its first piece of us.